Yeah, again, my name is Ronny Haraldsvi, and I appreciate being invited here. Unfortunately, the flight schedule was a little bit crazy, so I'm going to kind of jump right back into it here and give a little bit of context to what I'm talking about. First, a little bit about myself. 25 years in the industry, networking, last 16 in wireless and licensed spectrum access, and have 6 startups behind me and several big companies and lots of M&A. Lots of, I actually had a long blonde hair before I started working in telecommunications, and they just, they go hand in hand, I think. So, AI, machine learning, and Wi-Fi. I mean, why on earth would they go together? The founder of the company, Bernard Huskovicki, was the previous founder of Bell Air Networks, a company that was acquired by Ericsson about 4 years ago. And since leaving, he brought back the team together again that had sort of dispersed into different companies. And, with the idea that, artificial intelligence and machine learning, cloud and Wi-Fi could make things life a lot better, actually, and actually improve productivity, much cheaper, in applying, in essence, artificial intelligence to do what humans can't do and do it much faster, or take mundane tasks and just make it easier. Also, given the fact that, after about 16 years of Wi-Fi, clearly the cost has come down, and the sort of at parity, and everyone just expects Wi-Fi to work. So, where is the differentiating factor in making this a service that can actually, take the artificial intelligence and make it better? Let's see here. As I'm looking at a Windows PC for the first time in, many years. There we go. I just needed to find the arrow button. There we go. So I'm going to ask Dean here to come up and show me the back and forth button.
There we go.
Oh, you're using these ones. Okay, got it. Perfect. So if you take a look at the current Wi-Fi market today, it's very much CAPEX driven, it's equipment driven, and it's a $6 billion market growing to be about a $12 billion market here over the next 5-6 years. So clearly, there's a lot of growth in that same market. But what is not taken into consideration is that the IT personnel and people with the knowledge of actually managing Wi-Fi networks, which is crucial and critical to any business, it's not there anymore. And frankly, businesses want to focus on their core business and less about IT. The transition from 80% CAPEX, buy, own, manage, to 80% OPEX, where you actually buy things as a service, this has been underway for quite some time, especially when it comes to software as a service. So why shouldn't network as a service, be the next step? And that's where we believe, machine learning and artificial intelligence can really help now that the last mile into these networks has been solved. And, with LTE and Wi-Fi being very pervasive, we can take advantage of it. So our job and our vision is just to take something that's extremely complex and make it simple, and make this a service that is, unique and differentiated and, frankly, quite disruptive. So if you're considering, the fact that, most companies actually spend an enormous amount of time just doing troubleshooting. And I've had the fortunate pleasure of getting to know some very sophisticated IT personnel over the last 10 years. In my previous companies, I was able to host the IT Council and Enterprise Council, and they would actually keep us very much abreast of what's going on in the IT environment, and at the same time keep us honest as we brought products to market. Their job is troubleshooting and dealing with things that hit them from the left side, right side, from the beginning of time. It changes every morning, changes every night. So if we can take and alleviate some of that burden off of them, and at the same time address the CAPEX issue, which is that most enterprises now, frankly, want to spend more on OPEX and less on CAPEX, because overall, you're going to have savings in doing so. And if you take a look at your own telco closet, I'll be very surprised if you don't find out that 80% of what you have in that telco closet, if you're managing a small business or even a school education, can be outsourced or put into the cloud. So with that as a premise, and also some very significant research that we've done in this space, we know that there's a market in going from buy, own, manage to cloud managed and Wi-Fi as a service. We did a survey of about of the SMB space, and this is a survey results we haven't released yet, so you're actually the first ones to see it. Considering that there was 27 million businesses, small businesses, that's anywhere between 2 employees up to a couple of hundred, 27 million in the U.S. alone. And considering that over 60% of them, or 60 million, are actually interested and would like to move towards cloud managed service and take that burden off their hands, we need to do so with a very compelling proposition that addresses the price points, and at the same time, don't have them worry about the fact that this network is going to work and there's going to be kind of IT in the cloud there working for me. Now, so if you just do the math on this, 16 million, and that's the interested party, and then you say, what, of those, maybe 10% is going to adapt in the first couple of years, and then 20 and 30 and so forth. Looking forward, this is a multi-billion-dollar market that is going to disrupt the equipment market that's currently $12 billion. But it's becoming a services market, and with that, as Wi-Fi becomes a service, it actually pulls through with itself other services such as firewall, compliance, and security and so forth. All can be pushed out from the cloud. If you have a Wi-Fi network or a small cell network on premise, that can provide quality of service to that. So I'll get to some of the price points later so you understand what I'm talking about when it comes to the market sizing here. So the service that the KodaCloud came up with and brought to market very quietly about 9 months ago and really started ramping up about 3 months ago. The company just actually announced itself just a week ago at the MSP Alliance in Vegas. The proposition is very simply that you take Wi-Fi access points and you ship it directly to the customer location. So if you're a partner, and you buy into this proposition that you don't have to buy equipment, store the equipment, then try to sell the equipment, but that we ship this to the customer location direct, and it's just a monthly service where there's a revenue share, so that the partner who installs it gets a monthly check from us, and the customer is happy because they're paying a very, very low fee. If we're talking about anywhere between $20 to $30 per access point per month based on the size. Now, $20 to $30 per access point per month when you're not having to invest $500, $600, or $700 in an access point or manage that and all the costs associated with that, on top of it, considering that, that's a very good proposition. The research also shows that, the people who own these businesses actually assign a value or a cost to each access point when it comes to managing them on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis. And that's even after they bought the equipment. You'll be surprised to find out that cost of managing that access point is estimated to be between $27 and $30. So when you're suddenly buying a service where there's no CAPEX involved and you're buying that for a $20 or $25 per month, now you just transition from CAPEX to OPEX. And then, of course, you have to, believe what I'm going to be showing you next, which is that there's a proactive network monitoring service that's there that's different than what's currently being provided by anyone else. That's not just proactive, but it actually fixes things and does things and sets new policies. So the company has 14 patents around machine learning and artificial intelligence. It's focused on actually having a very adaptive, system. So that, yes, if you considering, if you have, for instance, I'm just going to ask the question here. Any one of you have actually flown a 747? We have a person in the back here. That's great. That's always a surprise question. Who here has actually managed a cloud controller or a Wi-Fi controller on premise? You got 2. Now, the statistical, there's an intersection of actually you having flown a 747 and managed a Wi-Fi controller is just astronomical. So I'm not even going to contemplate what that is. But it's very similar in many ways because, you have your learning, you have to have enormous amount of learning and know exactly what's going on. And there are very, very few RF experts out there. Yes, you can go to a Cisco training course and get certified and you can manage their controller or do the same thing with Aruba or Ruckus. But there are very few of you out there. And after you set up a network and you set up the Wi-Fi access points, maybe you have 200 employees, you set it up, and there's maybe 40 people on site, and you test things, you manage things, and you set everything up, and you maybe walk away. Guess what? Everything just changed as soon as you walked out the door. A new actually building came up next to you. A new tenant moved in, 2 floors up. 8 people just showed up for a conference call and a meeting with devices that are trying to connect to the Wi-Fi network. It actually takes you physically sitting there and monitoring this on a regular basis, which is something that 85% of these SMBs, they don't have these people. They have an IT person they can call who comes in after something has happened and try to fix it and troubleshoot. So, what we're addressing here, by in essence applying, these not just set policies which you normally would have in a Wi-Fi controller, whether that's a cloud-based or a premises-based controller. We do any set policies based on users and devices, the network layers. We ask our intelligence to go and look for problems when it comes to connectivity, when it comes to RF interference, SNR, and anything that a radio resource management tool will do. Except for that, we have actually taken that difficult part and moved that into the cloud with our 15 patents and applied machine learning to this. So what that means is that we look at it from a operational and a policy setting perspective, based on what we know and based on what we're seeing and who we're seeing connecting to the network. And then we monitor the network health and internal alarms. There's a lot of other companies that do the same thing. But then we start doing auto detection of issues. We actually start looking for issues. We start looking for problems. And we learn something about you. When you show up after you've flown your 747 and landed, you go in and do your resource management or even want to connect into the network. Now we see that last time you were here, you just had your BlackBerry with you, but now you got your new iPhone 7, and we want to connect you on 5.8 on the iPhone 7, but your old BlackBerry is probably better to be connected to 2.4. We know that, and it does that proactively. And frankly, when it starts noticing that you're having some radius connectivity issues, we actually look and see, is that a password issue or is it something else? If it may be a password issue and it's a human error, we actually send an alert to the IT contact person or the managed service provider and let them know proactively, hey, we found a problem before you alerted us to it, so you don't have to bang on the door or call people and so forth, and we actually alert you so you can go and fix something because it's actually out of our hands. So the diagnosing checklist and going from that and looking at do we move you from a different band or do we actually look at this as a rogue access point that showed up on a network and we need someone else to interfere and show up. We do all of these things so that there is what separates us from the manual process and the human process is that we now have something that's looking at a local network with a global view. So what it learns, what it learns locally, it actually applies it globally. So just imagine, when the latest iOS update takes place or Android update takes place, and we start seeing locally in one area where the first software release took place, issues in the network. We can alert the rest of the network that, hey, you may want to take preventative measures here and not upgrade because we're seeing issues with specifically Android devices or specifically iPhone devices when it comes to iOS. And we can be that proactive. And that in itself, I didn't believe until actually I saw it when I came and joined my old team. Because it takes existing policies and applies new policies. And then it does that by itself. And that's where the artificial intelligence part comes in. So, we set the basic parameters. And from there on, we kind of just let it loose. And it starts looking at applying new policies specifically to your network, vis-a-vis your network, and other people's network. But it also has that global intelligence to say, this could affect everyone. We're going to share this information more widely. Now, this is very much of an eyesore, and it's very difficult for you to see this, but this is just one of the many dashboards that we provide anyone who actually wants to look deeper. We know from the talking to SMBs, they just want to have hey, we got a green light, we got a red light, you fix X amount of issues for us. I get a weekly email that says, while you were sleeping or not noticing, we actually fixed all of these problems for you. And just like if you are a Nest subscriber, and I got 2 Nests in my house, I love them, I get that weekly or monthly update that says you saved X amount of energy, or we took care of it the following way. I mean, it just gives you a snapshot view of what's going on in the network. And this is accessible via an app or even via the the cloud portal, which means that the MSP or the managed service provider, as well as the customer, can see what's going on if they just want to sort of toggle and look into the network. So on the average, we fix the average improvement from an autocorrect perspective is roughly about 200%. I had to actually struggle with that math myself, but it actually does add up. And 99% of the devices, we always want to connect to the best access point. And that's also so far, from 500 access point under management and 50 customers. Like I said, we just got started, but we're getting a big ramp up right now. This is actually the averages that we're really starting to see. So small companies, they're like us, especially if you could be even a big company with many, many different locations. We have one customer that has 600 locations. Can't have, and they have anywhere between 10 to 40 people in each one of these locations. You can't have an IT person in every location. But by having our network out there, they actually have a global view of all of them from one central location or wherever they happen to be. And that's actually the value of this, plus there's no CAPEX involved with it. And we are constantly fine-tuning our AI and machine learning by applying more policies. I was telling Ian this earlier today when I saw him, because I last saw him in London about a week and a half ago or so, when I was just touting how AI was perfect. Well, AI is only as perfect as the human intelligence that input the code. And we actually discovered with one of our clients that there was a issue there, and frankly, instead of learning the right things, AI was learning the wrong things. But we very quickly fixed it because the customer found it. So AI is not perfect, but it will actually reduce the time it takes for a human to be involved in many multiple locations so that this actually can be truly become a good service. And we can be applicable to more than just Wi-Fi access and basic access. If you have a presence inside of the enterprise, you can indeed also apply a policy and a QoS to these other locations. You can make voice work better. You can make Spain's Telenor's video conferencing work better. You have the ability to actually see all of these applications, yes, through some DPI, traversing the networks, and be able to provide a QoS to it. One thing that we also found out from talking to the SMB is that a central cloud firewalling service, locally applied, is on top of their list. A couple of years ago, it was compliance or unified communications integration. Now it's actually firewalling. So we have a growing list of customers. We believe this market is very much starting to take off. We're the first one in, but we believe that others are coming, and we are seeing some machine learning applications being applied to Wi-Fi from other companies. And we believe this, the AI portion of this Wi-Fi network, especially as it relates to network as a service, is going to become very pervasive in the coming years. And as I mentioned, we just launched the company, so we're pretty fresh. So if you have not heard about us, don't feel bad. It's actually my job to fix that. So I believe it or not, I actually have time for a couple of quick questions before I got to jump out. So yes, please.
This one's fast. So when I sign up for your service, whose access point do you send?
We send you our access point with our software that we can flash and update on a regular basis. Didn't mention this, but it's actually a very important point. All the cloud features and other features that we're adding to our network is free of charge. We just add it and update it, in essence, at the dark of night. And since we've been there, done that before, 15 years experience, and most of the guys in the company that actually built, Wi-Fi access point both indoor and outdoor, we were able to contact the right contract manufacturers to get that price point down.
Okay, one more question. How do you get most companies have both internal Wi-Fi network and NaaS? How do you handle that dynamic?
Very easily, and good question. How do you handle it, both customers and visitors and employees? 35% actually of all of these SMBs that we talk to, allow customers to use their network. And the way to handle it is through, each one of these access points can do up to about 100 SSIDs. So you partition, you do VLANs, and you allow customers access accordingly.
Ronny, I've got a question. Are you going to start to use any data from the device side via either an app or something else to feed into the learning system, machine learning?
Yes, that is our goal. It takes a little bit of cooperation from Google and Apple to do so, beyond the basic DPI that you can do in the network. But yeah, that's a good question.
And do you think this is also, I know you've got a background in SpiderCloud. Do you see this as potentially applying to small cells or other bits of carrier infrastructure as well, the same general principles?
Yeah, we had the conversation about, self-optimizing networks of SON algorithms and so forth. This is different. This is different than SON. This is taking, resource radio management or radio resource management, applying that with SON, plus, dynamically setting policies. And yes, it is applicable to other access technologies as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's a question, Sven, at the back.
Yes. Hi, Sven. You are indeed correct there, Svein, and I want to correct Svein for saying that he was from Oslo, because his accent is from Bergen, which is my hometown. I'm actually from Norway as well. But you are correct. From the perspective of providing a service, you could be viewed as being a competing entity to a service provider. An ISP maybe? Mobile operator? No. But is this something that you as Telenor could provide to your customers? Absolutely. Well, before I do leave, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak. My contact information is Ronny, R-O-N-N-Y, at KodaCloud. My information should also be all over our website. Please look into it and feel free to contact me or send me a LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you very much.